me see if I am popping up. Yes, I hope so. Uh, Thank you all for coming. It's the weekend. Woohoo. Saturday, and a lot of interesting stuff happened last week. A couple of surprises we did not expect. So let's break it all down and tell you what's going on in the world. Some things have been kind of flat, some things have been kind of weird, but there's a lot of good stuff bubbling under the surface. So let's jump in. It is Saturday. Crypto market is now 2.17 trillion. It was 2.12 or 2.14 yesterday. Fear and greed still at 25. We'll analyze the fear and greed chart and see if we can make any sense of it and if it can help us in any way. And Bitcoin dominance is 53. We'll also talk about that too. I rarely talk about dominance, only unless it's very important. So let's jump in. And of course, none of this is financial advice. And I want to thank all the mods for coming too. Thank you, Sean Donnelly and T&D Tesla. Happy weekend. And everybody else who's here. Let's look at the last 7 days real quick, divided by Bitcoin. Thank you, CERN, for coming. As you know, everything divided by Bitcoin, Bitcoin will be flat. But most things actually beat Bitcoin, which is interesting. Does that mean all season is sneaking in? I'm not sure. We had some dark green for things like XRP, Cardano, and Tron, and Litecoin, and Polkadot, and ICP, and all the stuff that is normally not so good. They had a good week compared to Bitcoin. And let's look at what happened in terms of dollars, melting ice cube terms. Bitcoin up a little bit, 1% for the week, and it was up a week ago. I did this as well. It was up fractionally too. So we've been in a very, very tight range. Ethereum up 0.45%. Solana up about the same, 0.54%. Binance up a little bit more. But again, it looks like we're bottoming, which is good. So let's get into the Bitcoin black hole first, and a bunch of crypto and macro and some stock news as well. First of all, we had a big week, huge week for the ETFs, the biggest week we've had in 5 weeks. And Blackrock and Fidelity were stacking hard. Let's break down some of those numbers. We had the biggest day since day 101. That is massive just yesterday. The ETFs took in a truckload of money. In terms of the amount of Bitcoin taken from the system, 5,355 Bitcoin were bought yesterday by 9 ETFs. 5,335. That's 12 times daily issuance, more or less. So it's been a really, really good 6-7 days in a row. Really good. And we'll take that. And this is at the same time when Germany emptied their whole bag in a very short window of time too. In 3 weeks, they dumped 49,878 Bitcoin, 50,000 Bitcoin, one holder in 3 weeks. And what's very interesting too, according to one of the inscriptions on the German wallet, it said HFSP, which I had to Google what it means, and it means have fun staying poor. So somebody within the German government, I don't know what they meant by that. There's 2 ways you could interpret it: is, uh-oh, we're screwed, Germany, because we didn't hold our Bitcoin. Or, if you don't have it, have fun staying poor. Or, if you have it, you'll stay poor. I don't know what they actually meant, but I thought it was a very funny little coded encryption in the actual thing. Dorby, thank you so much for coming. Now, not the only one stacking. So you have 50,000 coming out of Germany in a very short window of time. You got 5,500 going into the ETFs just yesterday. And Mr. 100 over the last 7 days stacked 1,835 Bitcoin. So it looks like there is a good appetite for this Bitcoin stuff, despite what people will tell you. And it's bizarre. Now, what's also kind of crazy, if you add up the holdings of all the Bitcoin across all the ETFs and ETPs on the planet, they just hit, this is from HODL 15 Capital, by the way, they just hit 1,051,569 Bitcoin across 39 funds. And as you know, if you watch this channel, I believe there will never be more than 14 million Bitcoin, because so much is lost, so much is dormant, keys, etc., landfills, you name it. 14 million. That means the ETFs and the ETPs now own 7.5% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be in existence. And to the Bitcoin purists, that may scare them a lot. B-Man, good to see you, buddy. Thank you for coming. That may scare us. Like, what happens when they suck in more? And literally, this will be 15% in 6 to 12 months. No doubt in my mind. They're just going to keep on hoovering this stuff up, vacuuming it in, gobbling it up. And that's going to have an impact in some of the on-chain data too. Now, another chart that I like to use and keep an eye on, this is the average consumption per day, per trading day, I should say. It doesn't include Saturdays and Sundays, of each ETF since January 11th. And I threw in Mr. 100 too, because he is a substantial player, or she, or them, or they, or whatever, Sovereign, or Michael Dell, whoever it is. Since January 11th, Mr. 100 on average has bought 259 Bitcoin a day. Big, Bitwise, 298. ARK, 379 Bitcoin a day on average. Fidelity, 1,405 Bitcoin a day on average for 126 days. And BlackRock, 2,510 Bitcoin per day. Remember, these are per day numbers. Per day numbers. Only 450 Bitcoin are issued per day. BlackRock alone sucks in more than 5 times that amount. So we don't have that supply crunch yet. But if this continues for another 126 days, it could very easily happen. And I think that's fascinating. That's what I'm interested in. That's why I'm in the game. So let's see. Now, fear and greed, an interesting chart. And shout out to Lab for Crypto. This is their image, and I bastardized it. Sorry about that. I put green arrows and some lines on top of things just to help make the chart a little bit clearer. But basically, when fear and greed bottoms, okay, the Bitcoin price is in blue, and the green line is kind of 30-day simple moving average of fear and greed. When that thing bottoms, price rebounds afterwards, each and every single time, almost without fail, since 2020. Now, we are at that big bottoming fear and greed of 25 right now, which historically is right down there at the bottom of the barrel. What happens next? The answer is, unless it is completely different this time, Bitcoin will rebound. 99% guaranteed. 1% chance history will not repeat. We'll see. But this is an extremely strong bottom signal. And guess who else sees it? Well, our whale friends. And by the way, this chart here from CryptoQuant excludes miners, exchanges, etc. It's just whales, i.e. maybe a couple here in the audience who have big bags. But what you can see very clearly, what happened since the beginning of this year is the purple is the 30-day percentage change of bags, okay? And then price is in black. And whales are very clever. They know exactly when to stack. The further the price falls down, the more they buy. It's not difficult. Also, sometimes the higher the price, when it does hit an all-time high, they offload a little bit. And then the price comes down and they buy it back. So that's basically what's happening here. While many retail investors are scared or given up hope or dumped or whatever and played with meme coins, the whales are stacking because they probably have a pretty good idea where this is all going. Now, there's more, believe it or not, Bitcoin tailwinds. There is a Bitcoin conference in Nashville. I should have, 2 or 3 weeks ago, my friend Jack said, let's go. And I'm like, oh, I hate conferences. Ugh, can't stand them. But now this one looks really interesting. Bitcoin conference headliners. We have top names. Robert F. Kennedy, who is, I believe, a presidential candidate. There's apparently another one going too. I can't remember her name. I don't follow politics. Edward Snowden is going to be there. Bill Miller. Michael Saylor. Kathy Wood. Russell Brand. And another presidential candidate, DJT, will be there too. So it looks like it could be a very spicy event. And it's also interesting how, these candidates, etc., are all going there because perhaps, well, we've said this many times before, but this will be the first ever election where truly Bitcoin is on the ballot. Maybe not in Germany, but definitely in the US this year. Let's look at some interesting things. Shout out to Sanjay who got this to me this morning. This is the amount of funding. Very interesting. Funding for both pro and anti-crypto groups tied to Democratic or Republican parties. And the support expenditures, Republican Party has received more support from cryptocurrency PACs compared to the Democratic Party. So the people supporting crypto from crypto gave Republicans 16 million. They gave Democrats 9.7 million. But there is an opposed expenditure. The Democratic Party has faced significantly higher opposition expenditures, about 12 million, whereas the GOP, the right side, have very, very little. So it's very clear there's still a disjoint between both sides. And as I say, embrace or die, I think it would be bad for the Democrats not to turn around and embrace Bitcoin and crypto very quickly. Digital assets are here to stay. They are not going away. When you have Blackrock coming into the game, that's it. And the biggest money runner on the planet is in. And it takes money to run politics. Right here, you see it. Be on the right side of history would be my strategic advice, although I am not a strategic advisor by no stretch. Now, another kind of interesting bottom signal, perhaps, is from MvdPoppe. He believes Bitcoin dominance has peaked. And why do we care? Well, ETH and alts could be next. This is what typically happens. You can see here how Bitcoin has struggled at that 56% dominance level for quite some time. And now it looks like it's finally getting rejected. And as we saw from the very first or second chart I showed this week, you can see how, well, this one is better, how everything basically over the last 7 days has outperformed Bitcoin. Now, Bitcoin did have that huge headwind, of course, of Germany selling 50,000 Bitcoin in a couple of weeks. And that can, of course, did have an impact. But the stacking happening on the other side of the trade is unbelievable and extremely impressive. That's why we watch what the ETFs are doing and Mr. 100, etc. So super interesting as well to watch. Let's talk about some crypto coins as well. This is the L1, L2 summary for the week. It's a bit of an eye chart, but I'll summarize it real quick. So we have Tron coin wins on total value locked. Solana wins on stablecoin volume. Cosmos wins on weekly commits, and Cosmos wins on weekly active developers. Daily active users, Solana wins, and daily transactions, Solana and Toncoin win. So you can see Toncoin is really coming up. Sorry, Tron, not Ton. Tron win. So what's going on with Tron? How come Tron is so active all of a sudden? Well, Tron does an awful lot of stablecoin activity. In fact, much of it, all of the daily active users basically run Tether through Tron. So that's where many of these actually come from. And that's why I always stress it's important to understand you might see huge daily active users. For example, Near Protocol uses Kaiching, which is a shopping coupon thing where many people in places like, I think, Singapore, they don't actually know they're using a blockchain, but they know how to get a coupon to buy something on sale. So that's how they become users of this application. But it's very, very important if you have a protocol that has a very wide breadth of dApps. And I've always stressed that from day one. But you don't want heavy concentration just doing one thing on a chain. That really doesn't help. And Messari came out with the quarter-over-quarter report they do every single quarter for Solana. This is what they call the state of Solana. And they do it for all chains, by the way. But this was interesting because despite it being summer and doldrumy, etc., we have actions and blinks enabling a lot of transactions. The quarter-over-quarter metrics were pretty stunning. The total economic value is up 89.5% to 267.7 million. Ecosystem projects are funded are up 57%. TVL is up 46% to $1 billion. And fees and MEV, the total economic value, grew by 53% quarter-over-quarter to $151 million. So this chain has totally come alive in 2024, and even more so during the quiet summer period. And we know with Solana, the best always is yet to come later in the year, especially in the run up to November. So expect good things, especially as the crypto market wakes up as well, gets out of the summer doldrums, and Bitcoin fires up. We're going to have the ETH ETF. That'll float all boats, as I've been saying for months. and then alt season will kick in. So it's going to be a fun time. Let's look at some stocks real quick. Again, the week kind of mixed. Things up, down, flat. Everything up 2%, 0.7% or down 2.7%, like Amazon down 2%, NVIDIA up 2.7%, Microsoft down 3%, Apple up 1.7%, Google down 2.7%. I can't believe there's so many 2.7%. It's very bizarre. Anyway, not much happened. But behind the scenes, what is interesting, again, when we talk about breadth, the big seven were kind of flat, but the S&P 500 hit new all-time highs because all the laggards started to run last week, and that's what drove the market to new all-time highs. Despite what people will say, oh, the market's looking very bubbly. No, because there's an AI revolution going on right now, and we got some other good stuff coming that'll help the stock market. Speaking of a stock, although it is crypto-related, the ETH ETF will float all boats. That's what I've been saying for months. And now Kraken's head of strategy, Thomas Perfumo, believes the spot ETF will benefit the crypto sector, drawing significant capital flows and increased attention to the space. And he believes it could bring $750 to $1 billion a monthly net inflows to ETH and ETH products, potentially driving ETH to all-time highs of $4,000, $5,000, and also bring in an alt season. So I hope they are right. He also talked about U.S. political developments, noting bipartisan support in Congress and impact of election on future policymaking and legislative agendas around crypto. So a lot of weird stuff is happening. But again, we've seen as one side is very much trying to box the other side out because it will be a political issue. Speaking of proxies as well, MicroStrategy did announce, in case you missed it this week, a 10-for-1 stock split, and MicroStrategy did very, very well this week. And the split date will be August 7th. So make sure if you want to get, if you buy 10 shares before August 7th, you will have 100 shares August 7th, which means you can sell a covered call and help amplify your bags a lot too, which is what we like now. And that's why one of the reasons I think this will bring a lot of liquidity into MicroStrategy as well and help it continue to outperform Bitcoin as it has done so far this year. I forgot to add a MicroStrategy chart, but maybe I'll show one tomorrow if there's questions in the Q&A regarding that. And this was very interesting too. I know people have Elon derangement syndrome and everything else like that. But guess what? He owns space. And space is the new frontier. Satellites are, at this point, ground zero of the space economy. Your television signal, everything on your phone, anything that relies on GPS, your nav system, it all depends on satellites. Just as machinery and IP were the source materials for the modern economy on Earth, satellites are the backbone and definitely will be the backbone of the space economy. And what's driving the growth in satellites? Well, one company by the name of Starlink, and the number of active satellites increased weekly, so it's difficult to get up the minute data, but at the end of whatever it is. Anyway, either way, they have nearly 4,000 of them in space. And the FCC approved SpaceX to deploy another 7,500 of them. And hopefully it'll bring internet to the world. And that means education and knowledge and truth to the world as well. So I'm very big on space, very big on internet and AI and education. And this will help a lot of people. And then I started thinking, what would it take to bring Starlink to everybody on the planet? Every little kid who maybe doesn't have internet access. So this brought me on to Joe Consorti's chart here on interest expense on the US debt per month. Per month. The US is now spending over $140 billion per month. And of course, me being me, I'm thinking, how many schools could I build each month with $140 billion? The answer is about 6,500 schools with an average of 100,000 square feet, which is 10,000 square meters. Big schools, not small ones. And that would be very much needed. Also, you could, with $140 billion, you could create 1,200 hospitals spanning 300,000 square feet, 30,000 meters to be able to build state-of-the-art facilities that will bring medical to the world. And of course, for this $140 billion, you'd be able to bring Starlink to nearly you'd have 4 billion nodes, which is well enough to give internet to 8 billion people. That's how much the interest on US debt is. Interesting perspective. Hope I didn't bore anybody with that little rant. Now, back to the really, really crazy good news. I did talk about a couple of days ago, 83% odds of a spike. I think this was on Tuesday. Guess what it is now? Woohoo! Fed funds futures. Again, we are now above 90%. And the CPI on Thursday added more fuel to the disinflationary fire. And this is really, 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 really good news. And it looks like we are 100% guaranteed to get a 25 basis point cut, maybe even 50 basis points in September. And that will also help trigger the markets. And again, September meeting, surefire guarantee of 90% cut is the best number we have seen ever. Okay? And this will be the first cut to happen for a very long time. So we'll see. And final piece of news for today, China roars back. There was a lot of talk about China suffering, etc. But China trade surplus hit a record high last month as exports surged and imports unexpectedly declined, raising the risk of US and Europe stepping up efforts to shield their markets from Beijing. And exports soared to $308 billion in June, expanding for a third straight month to the highest level in 2 years. And imports fell to $209, leaving a surplus of $100 billion in a month. So, the easy way to think about that is China is back. The world is buying Chinese stuff again. And China is buying less of stuff from around the world, which will make China stronger and more powerful. And also, they have their money printer kicking into high gear, which will also, as I say, float all boats. And that's just the way of the world. But there are different economies around the world that are really struggling like that right now. And I've shared some of the charts. In fact, another big one I forgot to add here is California, which was the 5th biggest so-called country in the world based on GDP, has just eclipsed Germany for 4th space. Germany was number 4. Now it's number 5. California is now number 4 in terms of GDP. And much of that is driven, of course, by the AI revolution too. So Germany not only lost their Bitcoin, but they lost their position, 4th position of the largest economies in the world to California. And by the way, that's while California is being mismanaged. So imagine if it was properly organized. That would be incredible. Thank you all for coming. Happy weekend. I'll be back tomorrow, noon Pacific, with the live Q&A. I'll answer all your top questions from the week, as well as take lots of live questions. Now I go to work on that too. So thank you as well, T&D Tessa and Sean Donnelly, John Bennett, and Hobbit, B-Man, short for Batman, and everybody else. Rusty Bot there too. Thanks all. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.